it's not really about what women in auto care can do for Jacki. It's about what Jacki can do for women in auto care.
I think being able to shift your mindset to think about that this is a realignment, right? Mm-hmm. That this is an opportunity. This is the door's wide open and you get to choose where you go next.
Not chasing a title, not chasing a name, just chasing purpose.
You're not in it alone, right? There's not anyone in this room here that I know or across the industry that's not going to pick up the phone when you call and ask for help. Build your network and just it's such a lonely experience, but you're not alone, right? Like find ways to connect with others and let them help you because we all want to be helpful.
Personal branding. That is something that is actually in your control. That is a tool that you will take with you across your entire career, and it takes time to build it. It takes time to build that trust and for people to believe what you're saying.
Find what you're passionate about. Find what you're good at and find a way to monetize it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Carpool Conversations. I am Jacki Lutz, and I have with me two powerhouses in our industry, and I've really been looking forward to this conversation. So I actually met Kristine Frost. She's the founder of Shattered Glass Advisory, and I introduced myself to you last year.
I remember that.
And it's because actually the year before last year at Women in Auto Care, I was laid off at the time. So it was like the one I missed over 11 years in the industry. And everybody was raving about how you were at the auction and there was a Louis Vuitton bag or something.
It was.
That was climbing up. And then you ended up getting it and then you passed it over to a girl you work with. And I was like, that is just such a cool story, like just impactful and how much that must have meant to her. And I'm like, who's this Kristine Frost? And then last year you were up on stage and I actually got to see like who you were. So I wanted to make sure I introduced myself to you. And so a year ago, this is full circle, I told you I wanted to get you on the podcast.
Yeah.
But then you went through a little bit of a career transition. So we were waiting for Women in Auto Care. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about you?
Sure. So again, Kristine Frost, I go by K-Fro. I don't know why. That's just kind of stuck.
I love that.
But I am now, as of yesterday, a founder of a business, of course, women-owned business called Shattered Glass Advisory. And the goal with the business is basically to break barriers, to bring those voices and those individuals who have historically been excluded from the C-suite, who've been excluded from leadership, who have been in leadership roles but haven't had a true voice at the table, helping them to now have that voice to drive impact and to help those organizations that need more diversity at the table. So that is the goal. It's a rather lofty goal, but I'm really excited about it. But prior to that, I have over 20 years experience in the automotive industry, both on the OE side and also the aftermarket side. And I am incredibly passionate about helping others and about lifting voices, lifting women, and making sure that we are all enjoying this life together.
I love that. And were you HR before?
I was HR, but I'm not the bad HR. I'm the good HR.
Well, obviously.
You're the collaborative type.
I'm the collaborative HR. I am the HR that tries everything that I can to sort of bridge what may be a cultural gap between what a company and its leadership believes that their culture is and the culture that the employees are living. So we're bridging that gap. We're bringing everyone along and we're elevating the experience for the employee.
Yes, I love that. And I love that you were HR just for like a good background for the conversation we're about to have about career transitions. So it's amazing. And when sometimes I have a topic in mind that I'm like, I know the perfect person to talk about this. Sometimes I just want to get certain people on the podcast and I'm like, what do you want to talk about? And this was kind of one that you brought up. And when we started talking about who we should have on, Tammy Tecklenberg was mentioned, and it feels like an obvious choice. She's fighting similar battles to you in the industry and trying to get it to be more diverse. And Tammy, I just have to tell this quick story first. So Tammy was the one that actually got me involved in women in auto care a long time ago. Probably 2019, because I think I was pregnant at the time. I was already chairing Yang, and I was also the president of the Automotive Communications Council. And Women in Auto Care approached me about doing social media. And I was hesitant. And Tammy sat down with me for coffee, and she said something that has changed the way I look at volunteering in this industry. Because I told her, I'm like, I just don't know. I'm already involved in all these things. I don't really know, if a pack of women is really going to like help me much at this point. Like I have a good network. I'm doing things, whatever. And she goes, well, it's not really about what women in auto care can do for Jacki. It's about what Jacki can do for women in auto care. And even though it was a humbling moment, and I'm like, shoot, I got to do an attitude check, it has honestly changed the way I look at volunteering in this industry. So having you on the podcast is amazing. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about you?
And that sentiment is exactly why I'm here this week. The speakers are amazing and the content is great, but at this stage of my career, it's really about giving back to this community, right? And showing up. And I think so many need to see it, to believe it, to become it, right? So you've been such a good role model to so many. I got goosebumps when you told that story. I had a feeling you would tell that story because it was really impactful. Right? So I've been in the industry for 31 years, which is wild. And I spent my first 25-ish on the supplier side and with Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and along with private equity, and oversaw lots of functional areas, including sales and marketing operations, customer service, demand planning. When we would sell our companies with private equity, I would run the global integrations, putting the people, the processes, and the systems all together. So I really loved that. Through that, I was inspired to join the Car Care Council Women's Board. I think it was 17 years ago, and it was a group of 30 women. And that experience really inspired me to take some of the learnings and access to the things that I had. Currently, I was at Honeywell, so Fortune 100, executive coaches and leadership development opportunities, all this really great stuff. Like, how do you bring that back to this group to really make it more about what you're seeing today, right? Really kind of shift the tide in that organization. So I volunteered for many, many years, was president of the community when we actually negotiated to move it under the Auto Care Association officially and have it be a recognized community like Yang or ACPN and the others. So that has been a labor of love. But what I found was we would invest so much into this community, into the women and all the folks that we would mentor, and even the ones that I led, and we would we would put them back into the organizations that might not be ready for that change, right? They were outgrowing their organization, if I say it in a really polite and politically correct way, right? And so DOT was really born through a transition. DOT stands for diversity of thought, and it was about helping make culture a competitive advantage. It was about the organization itself providing data and tools and analytics to be able to understand the DNA. Kristine talked about really understanding your culture. So doing that in a really technical way to be able to give the tools and stuff to the leaders. And I do a lot of executive coaching, and it's been a wild ride, but it's been really fun to see that kind of come full circle of and we'll talk about this for sure, but what did the industry need at the time, and what were my skills, and how to kind of package that in a way.
Navigate that. Yeah. Well, that's incredible. And I'm really just honored to have both of you guys on. And our topic today is career transitions. And when we first talking about this topic, my head obviously immediately went to like all my friends who are laid off right now, having just gone through one myself. So I went to like this place in my head where it's like an unplanned career transition, the jolts, the emotional effects of it. And I'm like, yes, let's talk about it. This is something that needs to be talked about. I've had other people like recommend, talking about layoffs. But after our pre-meeting, you guys made such a wonderful point is that sometimes it's a choice to go through a career transition and to take a break and think about what you want to do. So let's first just talk a little bit about career transitions and what that can look like. So you both have stories of a big, I think probably a lot of them in your careers, but like a big one more recently. So let's just talk a little bit about your guys' story.
Sure. So, I stepped out of the automotive world a couple of months ago, and it was really sort of intentional, trying to bring back a bit of balance to my life, as well as all of the things I think that for many years I've ignored. So professional development, personal development, traveling around the world, and making sure that I had time to grow into the community that I had only lived in for 3 years and didn't know anyone, didn't know the names of the roads. I mean, felt like a stranger after 3 years. So this transition for me has been very intentional. So a lot of professional development, personal development, writing a book, launching a business, traveling, as well as something that I was missing for the last few years, and that was being present in the community, in the communities in which I get the most of my cup filled. And a lot of that is around nonprofits. So I've been incredibly honored to be partnering with a few nonprofits in New York and Metro Detroit and helping them to organize, strategize, and really, making sure they're successful.
Let me jump into it with this question. So when you decided like, okay, I'm going to take a break, you had a big role.
I had a very
previous
big role.
Company. I won't say who it was, but like you had a huge HR role.
I did. I was in the C-suite.
Yeah. So like stepping out of something like that, which to a lot of people is almost like an end goal, right? Like that's what I want to be. I want to be in the C-suite. And you got there. I'm sure it was a goal of yours at one point, maybe.
Absolutely.
And then you walked away from it and not necessarily having a parachute or something to fall on, and did you have an idea of like this, I'm going to walk away and I want to start my own business? Like, did you know what you wanted to do or?
No. I knew that I had buckets of things that I wanted to do, like a laundry list, but I will say that starting a business was not on that list. Mm-hmm. It developed very quickly upon stepping away. And yes, I went through sort of that grief experience and that Sunday night when you're anticipating work and then waking up Monday morning and going, oh, I'm not at work, but there's other great things that I'm going to be doing on this Monday. And sometimes it was just curling up with a puppy, but
that sounds lovely.
It sounds lovely, but I don't know that I've ever been happier. And I think it was really just entering this with intentionality and saying, I have a gift right now. This is a gift. I don't want to waste it.
Mm-hmm. I have so many more follow-up questions, but I want to talk about Tammy's transition first too.
So I was,
as best as you can.
Yeah, I was part of a private equity company, and we grew the business and sold it. We had a really successful exit, and then a couple of years later sold again. And for me, the realignment was inevitable, right? I was starting to see things shutting down. I saw the writing on the wall, right? As you kind of put companies together, especially like the higher you are, right? So high risk, high reward. So I remember the day that I was let go. I walked in, the HR leader was there, and I said, okay, so this is it. Like, I was so excited about it because it was really what I was wanting. I wasn't aligned with kind of the way things were going. I stayed around too long because I was really committed to the company that I had built and the brands that I was so invested in, and most of all, the people, like all of my team members that I had brought in. I outstayed my welcome for sure. It was time for me to find something new. I had this big print on my wall that Women from Women in Auto Care gave me, and it said, "The meaning of life, the purpose of life is to find your gift. The meaning of life is to give it away." Mm-hmm. And I stood on the steps of my Fortune 500 company with that sign. And I asked my husband, Tom, to take a photo because I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew it was going to be epic. And it was just about trying to figure out, like, what are my, instead of chasing my dreams, like chasing your skills, like, what are you really good at? And we'll talk about transferable skills for sure. And then what does the industry need? And the universe started making my phone ring, and leaders from across the industry needed what I could give them. And so that's how Dott was born. And it's been a very meaningful experience for me. I want to be really mindful, though. Kristine and I are, we were senior leaders. We're more senior in age too, as well, right? Mm-hmm. So when we exit an organization, you
had expertise.
We have expertise, but like
a personal brand on your side.
We also, it's about building your personal brand, but financially, we're much more stable. So where, I own my homes, like I don't have any bills, like it was a very easy transition for me because I was set up in the right way. So I just want to be really respectful and mindful of all of those folks that are out there that I'm desperately trying to find jobs. I help so many to, land the right position.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make as people embark on journeys like that to be thinking of. Because, I wasn't C-level when I got laid off. I was more like mid-level management, I'd say, like upper mid-level. I was kind of at a certain point like you guys where I was already kind of looking for other jobs. I was already doing some interviews here and there because I knew I wanted to try something different. I wanted it to be on my terms, and like walk away on my own and with the security blanket that I wanted and everything. And it ended up, my company went through a huge transition and I was let go. And even though I had so many people in the industry say, like, you're going to be fine. Like, I'm really not worried about you. Like, you'll find something. And I know so many of my industry friends right now going through that. It's such a frustrating and emotional time that I think people need to realize that it's very normal. And even when you choose to do it on your own, you still have these fears. You still have this like insecurity, like, can I do this? One day you feel good. One day you're like, feel awful. One day I would feel like, oh, I have so many opportunities. Like I have all these lists, like doing all of these interviews and, I'm going to be fine. And then one day, 3 days go by and I hear nothing from nobody. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You kind of like go through this roller coaster. And a lot of that is almost necessary. It's necessary noise that you have to have and work through in order to figure out if you want to be intentional about that time.
Yeah.
Whether it was a jolt or whether it was a decision, if you want to be intentional with that time, I think what you said in our pre-meeting was figure out what brings you joy.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really good point.
Absolutely. And it's not always easy. So, and I've been teaching my kids this, find what you're passionate about, find what you're good at, and find a way to monetize it. I think, as we look at the Generation Z and the future generations, the gig economy is growing, faster than anything. And I think that taking time, if you've been laid off, taking time to really let yourself sort of embrace what's happening, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. If mental health is a big thing, but making sure that you are providing comfort, that you have a strong support system, and taking time to breathe. I think that is, I think it's really absolutely critical.
It's hard because when you are kind of under the financial pressure, like for me, I was like over half of our income. So me losing my job, luckily we had a bit of, a few months to figure it out. But that was pretty scary now with 2 kids. Absolutely. Had that happened 5 years ago, I probably would have felt okay. But it's really hard when I'm speaking in good company here when like I devote a lot of my extra time to my work as well. It's what I'm always thinking about.
Yeah.
If I do get a chance to read, it's what I'm reading about. You know, like I want to be better at my career. I want to grow my career. So when all of a sudden you're handed a pink slip and they're like, okay, you know, you devoted your energy and your passion was your company. It was your job. And now that's gone. And then you're trying to be like, okay, but what brings me joy really? Like, okay, well, I haven't thought about that in a
long time,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. That's a hard conversation.
I think it's really important to be prepared. So the higher up you get, the more risk, I talked about this earlier, but the more opportunity for you to be cut. It's there, right? And I think so many are not prepared. The women here, 434 women here, are building their network. And that's the smartest thing that they can do to be prepared. So if the worst thing happened, right, that there's so many people that can help lift them up and help get them through that process, right, and help get them to the other side. And I think that being prepared with resumes and that type of stuff, because most people feel invincible, that it's never going to be me. And, you know, statistics show you that it will, right? And so I think that's really, really important, but also not tying yourself to your brand, right? So you were Sensata forever. People still to this day, and I haven't volunteered, you know, in a full capacity in many ways, but people always will equate me to women in auto care. And that's lovely. And I'm proud of that. But it's can be damaging because a lot of people think that I only support women, right? And I'm not supporting men, or they get confused about it. And so even with my own corporate brands, right? Like you get tied to a brand. And so I think it's really important. We always talk about personal branding and just being really loyal to your brands, but not just having that be your full identity.
Yeah. I always
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like in my personal branding talks, I always say that you should have 3 to 4 themes to your brand. And I always use myself as an example. And like, if my only thing was working for my previous company and that's all people knew me for, and then I get laid off, I'm rebuilding from scratch.
Yes,
because
exactly.
I have nothing else.
Exactly.
So, you know, I usually have the company that I'm working for, you know, personal branding, all the volunteer work that I used to do, being a working mom. You know, I had like other things that I would talk about, but you pick 3 or 4 so people can remember them all.
Yes.
And decide kind of like what you want to be known for. So that way, like something like this happens, you're not starting from ground zero.
Yeah, for sure. I do think it's important to realize, you know, particularly if you're in a situation where you are not choosing the transition, I think it's important to realize that the emotional process that you will go through will not be linear. And I think Jacki, you hit on it. You know, one day you feel invincible and then maybe you get ghosted by a recruiter, or maybe you get, you know, a recruiter calls you and says, sorry, the company's going to pass on you, or time goes by and you're not seeing the jobs out there that you want. So it's not linear. You're going to have those ups and you're going to have those downs. And I think, you know, what Tammy said about network, take that time to build a network. If you haven't done it already, and I think everyone should be out there building networks, find your network. And maybe it's several. I know, women in auto care, there are other associations where you can find people. There are things that are out in the community. So, you know, you aren't a singular identity, and people think of you from, you know, very different lenses, and hopefully they're all positive lenses.
Because you're generally really isolated. I watched the people that transition not by choice, and their whole network was within their company and their teams, right? And then maybe that's cut off and they're not supposed to be talking to them anymore. So it's very lonely. So if they can tap into Yang or ACPN or Women in Auto Care or the other communities, it's just, I think that's so incredibly important to be able to have that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, not to get back on my soapbox, but personal branding is such a huge part of it, because you might think you have a big network. Maybe a lot of people know who you are, but do they trust you? Do they know what it's like to work with you? Do they know what your personality's like? You know, did they have coffee with you one day? Like, to really lean into your network, not just grow it and not just have people that know who you are, but really be like, do people want to work with you?
Right.
You know, are you desirable?
Right.
And like, make sure that that's, you know, built into, you know, however you're building your, whether it's, you know, digitally on LinkedIn and really going for it, or whether it's just coming around these networking events, you know, build the relationships, not just like the acquaintances.
Yes.
I think that's huge because like
For sure.
having more than an acquaintancy with you really helped me build my network more, because the more relationships like that, like people that have your back, that's more opportunities that you're being put up for when you're not in the room to speak for yourself.
So important.
And it is a very lonely place when suddenly, you know, as Tammy said, you're cut off from all of these people that, you know, were a huge part of your life in that company. You spent most of your time there, more time than you're with your spouse or your children or other members of your family. And then that's gone. And it's isolating. And, you know, it can be very dark. You can go to very dark places.
Yeah.
But having a network and intentionally taking time to reach out to one another, particularly, you know, if there's a group of people who've been laid off, share those experiences, make sure that no one is left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if we get into some like tactical things, something we mentioned in our pre-meeting, I don't remember which one of you it was, but mentioned being stuck in the past and how that can hinder some people from moving forward when things like this happen. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think being able to shift your mindset to think about that this is a realignment, right? That this is an opportunity. This is the door's wide open and you get to choose where you go next. And I think in order to do that in a very positive way, you need to let go of the baggage that held you back and the anger. You know, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of
stages of grief.
Yeah, exactly. All of the stages of grief, but you need to find people that can help you accelerate that, because the sooner you let that go, the more valuable you'll be to your next organization.
Yeah. How did you guys do it? I think someone mentioned journaling.
Oh, yes.
Do you journal? You journal?
Big journaler.
So how did you go about journaling to help you through this? How did that help?
Again, I think whenever you are experiencing major change, your mind is everywhere except this very moment. You know, you're sitting there and you're going back and you're thinking about the past and the what ifs.
Could I have done something different?
Yeah, could I have done
worked
something
harder?
different? Did somebody know something? Was there a rumor? Was there what happened? You are left with so many questions that you'll never have an answer to. But the great part is that's behind you.
Yep.
Right. And you don't know what's going to be in the future, but you have this moment in the present. And I find that getting up in the morning, having a routine, and one of my daily routines is journaling. So it could be about a specific topic. I don't typically write down, well, yesterday I had coffee with
Dear Diary.
it's not a Dear Diary moment.
That's why I picked it, to be honest with you.
No, not a Dear Diary moment. It is, word salad, for lack of a better term.
So like anything on your mind, you're just
anything that's on my mind, anything that I may be thinking or I may be feeling. I usually journal to music because I find that music for me brings out the emotion, and I'm able to put it on the paper, close the journal, and get on with my day.
Do you read it after?
No.
So it's more just to like silence your mind a little bit. Like maybe if it's on paper, you can forget about it and like,
but it's
read your mind
for a future book, right? Right? I mean,
It absolutely is content for a future book.
You've got to
Maybe
make sure you've got to hold those stories tight. I feel like one of the things that we need to touch on is the ongoing trend on once women get to the C-suite, they're often the only, right? And there's such a trend of you get to the top of your game and then you exit. And so there's so many reasons around that. We're actually launching.
Like by choice you exit or both?
Yeah.
Like not
mostly by choice.
Okay. So
mostly by choice. They're like
doing the time and they get there and they're like,
and they either leave our industry. So all of my not all, but my very best friends in the industry were very senior executive women that all made the choice, like, peace out. I'm going to either go to another industry where it's a bit more progressive, or I'm going to consult or just exit the workforce in general and retire early. So it's been really interesting to watch this, and it inspired, we're launching a leadership development for women only it's going to start in April, and then the second session will be in May. But it's really around how to navigate these situations of when you are navigating the workforce as a woman. You're not crazy. These things are happening, and there's layers of opportunity to be able to unpack and understand how you're showing up, how you can. Sorry, someone just came popped in. How to be able to win in that environment. Think about it, like the people, as you're coming up, you have allies and you have, executive sponsors, and everyone is supporting you. Mm-hmm. When you get to be their peers, then it's a competition. It's a different game, right? Yeah. It's also really isolating because you're the only. Mm-hmm. Often they bring, a token woman into the conversation or onto the table because they really want someone to be disruptive. Mm-hmm. But then that person, they want them to be a change agent, but then they don't really want to change. Right. So that is very common.
I think you've really hit on something there. And as a woman who's been in the C-suite and was the only woman in the C-suite, I will say it is a difficult moment. It is incredibly lonely. And you're right. I think, when I look at these, recruiters who call me, or I see something posted on a job and they're specifically saying, look, we want a woman. We don't mm-hmm. have a woman in our C-suite. This is a great opportunity. My question now, having that experience, is, are you ready for that? Is the organization ready for that? Are they ready to embrace a different viewpoint? And
diversity of thought.
I'm telling you,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Diversity of thought.
Yes, mm-hmm. yes.
And I think, to your point, Tammy, I think a lot of women who are there in that C-suite, you just get exhausted because not only are you a different voice, but you have to work 2, 3, 10 times as hard to gain trust and authority. I know I was in a C-suite where not only was I the only female, but I happened to be also, well, at this point, the second youngest person mm-hmm. in the room. Mm-hmm. And it was constantly trying to prove that I belonged there. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is a battle that, if you're doing that every single day, mm-hmm. at some point you're going to say enough's enough.
Yeah. It's the extra tax, and that's so much of what the training we're doing is to show you this is why you're feeling exhausted mm-hmm. and how to navigate that, right?
So, I just don't want people to be too discouraged, and because to me, like, I believe everything you guys are saying. Like, I know that it's true. I think, like, I've heard it enough. I know it's true. But for, like, people like me who are like, I don't know if this is my goal anymore, but people like in middle management who are like, I want to be C-level. Mm-hmm. How do you, I don't know, do you get ahead of it? Is this just your fate? Like, how do you prepare yourself for when you do get there to have a different experience? Or is this more of the culture change that we need because it's just not up to one person? No,
it's both. I mean, that's exactly why we built this training out with my partners at Mesh, to really teach you and train you to give you those skills to navigate it, because we haven't been prepared for this, mm-hmm. right? We're prepared to be a leader like everybody else is a leader. We mm-hmm. got that. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole nother dynamic going on in that room that we're not prepared for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it's about that. It's about engaging with the tools and the right training to be ready.
Do you feel like men have their own issues too?
Of course.
Like,
we,
what are their
issues?
we have
Tell me
all,
about their issues.
we have all the issues.
Like,
right?
this is a common thing that you see with women when they get to the C-level suite. It's not like men never get laid off. Like, so what, for the men listening, what are they watching out for?
A lot of men, we all have imposter syndrome, right? So there's
Always.
even men over women, the statistics show that men are more likely to code switch. So they're kind of hiding who they 100% authentically are often. They're not letting out their kind of personal life as much. I think we're more of an open book.
Yeah.
But
I think there's a competition there among men, or everyone perceives that there is a competition among the men that I don't think, me being like the only female in the C-suite, I don't feel that competition. But I do, it is taxing. And, if you think historically men have been the breadwinners of the family, that's certainly changing. And that's another
that's
added
a lot of
tax.
pressure.
Yeah.
That is an incredible amount of pressure.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't really hit on, that I think is kind of important, and it definitely is something I dealt with when I was laid off, is the humbleness factor to it. And I think, Tammy, we had a conversation about this. So when I was looking at that point, I think it was actually before I got laid off, and I was looking for a new position, and I wanted to move up. I was a little bit at a ceiling where I was at, and I wanted to, like, the new title. I was looking at it that way. And from being like head of global, like VP was what was on my head. And, you kind of were like,
who cares?
How old was I? Like 35.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was. It was just like,
you want to play the long game.
Yeah. And what I realized, and like even in the role I'm in now, I probably would, I don't even know if I would have applied for this role had it been a role that was actually like out there. Because I just felt like I wanted to have the step up. And I just had Liz Whalen on the podcast, and she talked about,
moving over, right?
Lateral
moves, getting experience in all
getting
these different functional areas to be able to ladder up.
Yeah. And I think that maybe that's something people need to hear too, is like, titles really don't mean much. I feel like I have more responsibility in this role than I even did in my other one. I think I have more pressure, even more stress at times. I care about it so much more. Like, when something goes wrong with this, it hurts for days. Like I beat myself up. So, I think that that's something too that I hear from a lot of, industry people, like what they're looking for, VP of sales, these are the kinds of roles. And maybe we should just be open a little bit and a little bit humbled that it wasn't about me, but it was from somebody else that got laid off. And he told me, he asked him, well, how much, because he was thinking about hiring him. He's like, well, how much do you think you're worth? And they gave him a number, and he goes, well, technically right now you're worth 0. Like you're not working right now. So like you need to be open to like, I'm not saying to like dive down and, make half of what you were making before. But, I had non-negotiables. I had 5 non-negotiables. I didn't get a single one in this job. Like I was like, I'm not budging on these things. And I budged on every single one. And I'm so glad I did. So I think there's a little bit of like humbleness and flexibility to this search too. Don't, maybe look at roles and be like, what could this be? What could I make it?
Right.
And just because it might be a certain title, online doesn't mean you can't negotiate those things.
But you were doing a lot of self-work on finding your why.
Yeah.
And what really lights you up, what's your purpose, and this checked a lot of those boxes.
Yeah, and it was an exhausting. Stacy asked me that when I went to lunch with her, and I had no idea she was going to ask me, because she wanted to work with me. I didn't know that at the time. Just went to lunch with her because she was a friend, and she goes, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, God, I hate that question. I don't know. I haven't had a choice in 10 years. I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
I don't even think I'm doing what lights me up. I don't know, but like talking to her, she kind of helped me find that and like format this role. And like, I'm like, oh my God, that would be a dream job, And then I kind of had an idea of what to work for. But, that was another thing too. I used to love sales, right? And I was like, well, maybe this is my chance to go to sales. But when you're a global head of marketing, you're not going to become a global head of sales.
Right.
You have to
Right.
but now you're selling in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Yeah.
all about those transferable skills and understanding like where your superpowers lie and how to, what does the industry need? And this role couldn't be more perfect for you. You're a really great
Yeah,
example of
absolutely.
when the universe sort of forces you out of your nest because you weren't looking, you were dabbling around and looking for other jobs, but you hadn't found anything exciting. And when this happened, you were like thrown out there and you feel really naked.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have landed in a better place.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's been fun.
Yeah. I do think there is something to kind of that humility factor. But I think chasing titles, and this is the HR person in me coming out, I think chasing titles is a losing proposition. I believe that folks, as they're coming up through their career, leadership, non-leadership, and everything in between, learn as much as you can about every function in the organization. Each organization you go to, sit in meetings with engineers, even though you don't understand engineering. Sit with the marketing group, understand finance, walk through a P&L, start getting that broad experience, because chasing the titles, at some point you're doing yourself a disservice. You won't get the title, or you'll get the title, but you won't be happy or you won't be effective. And I also think that there's some research out there that the organization chief, which is an executive women's organization, they are pivoting their entire model around the fact that women are not going vertically up a ladder. People are taking shifts. They're starting their own businesses. They're taking time out. They're pursuing other things. They're consulting, and then maybe they're jumping in as an executive for a completely different field. And I think that is important, that you don't narrow your viewpoint of what you are pursuing. And I think this conversation that the two of you had some time ago, where it's like, what do you want to do? Think about that. You have a blank canvas. When in your life are you going to have that? I'm so excited right now. I've never been, I like to have fun, but I've never been this excited in my entire career. Never felt this refreshed. Never felt this purposeful. And I'm going to take all of that energy and ensure that my next search fulfills what that level of excitement, that level of interest, that level of passion. I want it to be there. I want it to be a good fit, not chasing a title, not chasing a name, just chasing purpose.
Before we kind of wrap this up, to follow that up, do you think that is a luxury that C-level executives have? Or do you think that somebody who is 5-10 years into their career should be like, does this job light me up? Not really. But do you need that job to get the experience, to get to something that lights you up? I don't know. Like, is that a luxury, or is that something that everybody should be really thinking about?
I think there's other ways to light you up, right? You need a paycheck, and you don't make rash decisions, like play the long game, right? Keep your eyes open, build your network, understand what other opportunities are out there, like really work on learning what makes you tick. And then within your company, volunteer for maybe other project work, or raise your hand for different things to be able to get that broad experience, that cross-functional experience. I used to raise my hand for every opportunity and just would land grab functions. And at the end, I think I led 7 different functional areas. And it was really great to be able to have just diverse experience.
Yeah, and I think like volunteer opportunities too. That's a really good way. I always told people when I was chairing Yang, I'm like, if you've ever been curious about social media, like this is the place to make the mistakes. Honestly, this is the place to learn,
right?
And meet other people that are doing it and have a little network there. So there's other ways too. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This was such a good conversation. I'm kind of sad that I have to wrap it up because I feel like this could keep going, but I do want to just go around the room real quick. And, if our audience was capable of taking away one thing from this conversation, I'm curious what message each of you guys hope that is.
I'll let Tammy go first.
You're not in it alone, right? There's not anyone in this room here that I know or across the industry that's not going to pick up the phone when you call and ask for help. Build your network and just don't, it's such a lonely experience, but you're not alone, right? Like find ways to connect with others and let them help you because we all want to help, be, helpful.
Yeah, just on that, like a suggestion I have is I've had a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn who are laid off and they just ask for a coffee moment, and it's like 15, 20 minutes.
Sure.
And they just tell me like, I learn about their story and I get to meet somebody new and I get to, they tell me what they're looking for. And then like they have somebody now who's a little bit more invested in them.
Yes.
Who, isn't just going to say, yeah, I'll keep my eyes open. It's more like, this sounds like it'd be something good for you, like really keep your eyes open. So like, I think a lot of people in your network are open to that. And I feel honored when people do that to me.
It's not being afraid or shy about just asking for what you need. I need 15 minutes of your time for a coffee chat. I need you to lift me up today because I'm feeling a little bit down. I also would love to share for the recruiters out there, and not including Liz because she's amazing, but there's so many that ghost them, and that's the whole process is so broken, right?
Yes.
Being able to just be respectful of the people that you're working with and just keep them updated along the way. Cause you talked about like, there's that gap period where you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And when you're on the inside of a corporation, like, a month goes by and it feels like 5 minutes, but when you're on the outside, it feels like a life.
You realize like this isn't as important to everybody as it is to you,
So really, just being mindful where even if you're a hiring manager, being mindful where you have the power to just be honest. Also give that feedback to someone after they interview. If they're not a right fit, give them that positive feedback and the opportunities on. These are the things I think you should be working on to be able to be ready for the next time we're hiring, right?
Absolutely.
So you saw that so many don't do that.
Yeah. And honestly, it's changed the way if I'm ever a hiring manager again, I look at it so differently. I will be better at it because people are in such an emotional state. They are, and sometimes they are hanging everything that they have go, like this is the last opportunity that they have going, right? And then they hear nothing and their brain is going and just getting them to bad places. Like absolutely communication.
Yeah. I think, from my perspective, I think it's important that folks know that we have all been here. We have all been in a situation where the job that we thought we were going to have for maybe our entire careers is gone without warning. And it is lonely and it is scary. And, make sure you lean on your network. Make sure you ask for those coffee moments. If you don't have a network, reach out to me. I love connecting people to opportunities. It's maybe the best part of my career, that part of me, my career where, I learn about opportunities in HR and connect people with those. But, it's lonely, but so many of us have gone through it or are going through it. And, keep reaching out.
I think my takeaway, and it's probably predictable, but I would say one thing that you can do to prepare yourself, whether it's going to be on your terms or not, but a career transition is just personal branding. That is something that is actually in your control. That is a tool that you will take with you across your entire career. And it takes time to build it. It takes time to build that trust and for people to believe what you're saying. And start now. Like the best thing, I didn't have a Jacki telling me to do this, and I don't even know why it happened, but I started working on that 5 years before I got laid off, and it saved me. Like if I didn't have that to lean on during that time, I don't know how I would have necessarily made it through, because I knew that my name was being talked about in rooms that I wasn't in by people I've never even met because I had worked on that. And like, that is something that you can actually practically touch. Like you can actually build that for yourself. And I would just encourage everybody to be thinking about that. It's kind of a newer thing too. because of the digital presence you can have as an individual, not necessarily as your companies.
It is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
So powerful.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you guys. This was incredible.
Thank you.
It feels like there's a part 2 because it's really like I feel like we could have gone even deeper. So I really appreciate your guys' time and sharing your insights.
It's a pleasure. Love it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.